is Histories and Mysteries Uncovered. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Jessica. And on this week's episode, Ashley is going to be telling us about a really bad guy.
Yeah.
His name is Andrei Chikatilo.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to be talking about the Gunpowder Plot, otherwise known now today as Guy Fawkes Day.
I've never heard of it. Very interesting.
Yes. So the day that our episode is released is November 5th, which is Guy Fawkes Day.
Oh, is that a
So,
Canadian thing or like a whole world thing?
British, like England.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's what basically V for Vendetta was based off of.
Oh, that was a good movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it would be really cool to give the history of it,
Yeah.
considering it's the day our episode comes out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I have a cool personal story to go with it too.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I love personal stories.
Me too. And I have to apologize for my audio last week.
Oh, I don't know what happened.
I'm assuming it was because of the glass in the picture my mom gave me, which sucks because I loved it.
It was so cute.
But I think just the way that sound bounced off of it, it just affected the audio a little bit too much. So
yeah, that makes sense.
So hopefully we're back to normal this week.
It sounds good from my
good
spot.
Okay, perfect.
My story is really bad.
Okay.
It's very Ed Gein-ish.
Oh.
Yeah. This was actually suggested to us by one of our listeners, Ivan. He is Russian, and this is a Russian serial killer. So all the names are Russian. So please bear with me. It's very difficult. I think I've got some of them. Some of them are pretty well-known names. So like, I think I got some of them, but some of them I'm gonna do my best.
Okay.
But I am a little Russian in my background.
Whoa.
So maybe that'll like come out and help me pronounce these names.
Okay. Somebody commented on one of our YouTube videos, and I think it was when I was doing the Leif Erikson episode.
Oh, yeah.
And how I was trying to pronounce
what
all
say?
Those like Norse names.
Yeah.
They said, I'm from there. It's great. Like, you did a great job. Like, I'm assuming it was because of my story. I don't know if it was maybe your story, but either way, it was a very nice comment.
Oh, very nice.
So thank you, because we love knowing that we actually pronounce properly sometimes.
Sometimes I just give up and I'm like, fuck it. This is how I'm saying it.
Yeah. Well, at least we own it.
Yeah. I'm sorry I'm yawning so much. I'm like super tired today for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, well, stop.
I'm gonna try my hardest.
Because you're making me yawn.
Ugh. Have you ever I'm one of those people that sometimes just randomly yawns, even when I'm not that tired. And then I think about it and then I start having like a yawn fit. And it always happens at the worst time. Like I'm in a meeting or something.
No.
You ever get that? Oh, I get that.
No, but you're yawning because you're bored, not just because you're tired.
No, not bored in it. I don't know. I get like in my head. I don't know. Anyway, I got my resources from biography.com. All That's Interesting, ThoughtCo, Grunge, Ranker, The Crime Mag, and Murderpedia.
Wow.
That's a lot. This guy did a lot.
Okay.
That's also, I'm trigger warning. There's some graphic detail in here and cannibalism and all that stuff. So Andrei Chikatilo was born October 16th, 1936 in a village I'm not even going to try and pronounce, but it was very rural Ukraine, which at the time was part of the USSR. It was a hard life where he was from. The area was known as the breadbasket of the Soviet Union, which I'm assuming means that's kind of where all the food and, wheat came from. But Stalin's policies on agricultural collectivism, collectivization made that life extremely hard, and it caused famine and just destroyed the population of that area. Then, when the USSR entered World War II, there were bombings all over Ukraine. So, this is how Chikatilo grew up, hungry and in constant fear of bombings. And I saw this on like two sources, uh, that apparently his mom told him that he had a brother who was eaten by the neighbors because the neighbors were starving.
Oh.
But no one's ever been able to confirm this story because there's no records of this brother's birth. And a few years later, his mom was diagnosed with severe dementia. So I don't know if it was a story that she kind of made up in her head or if there was, I don't know.
Did he end up eating his neighbors in retaliation?
No, no.
Oh,
Left his neighbors
okay.
alone.
Okay.
It's also believed that he was born with something called hydrocephalus, which basically means water on the brain.
Yeah.
And it caused him to have genital and urinary tract problems. And the genital problems will come back to haunt every woman. He wet the bed until he was older. And then once he hit puberty, he found out that he really couldn't sustain an erection. He could ejaculate, but he couldn't sustain an erection. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it's important later on. I'm not just telling you for the hell of it.
Thank you for letting us know you had a reason.
So then even more shit was piled on when his dad went to war and was captured. And apparently, so this is the USSR, right? Like life's hard. They are brutal. And apparently because his dad was captured, it meant his dad was a coward.
Because he was captured?
Yeah. And so because of this, Chikatilo was bullied really badly in school.
Because he was captured, that made him a coward?
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
But him fighting in a war makes him pretty brave.
Got captured, Jessica.
So, but maybe was it he was fleeing?
Maybe. I
And
couldn't find
that's
much more on
why?
that. I just found that because it said because he was captured, he was seen as a coward.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. And maybe that's
Okay.
the thought, like you get captured if you're fleeing. I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe
Real
he was
weird.
AWOL and that's when
Yeah.
he was captured and that's why he was classified as a coward?
I have no idea.
Huh.
Yeah. So all of that is very sad, but don't feel bad for him because he's a horrible person. And this started when he was 15. He tried to rape a girl, but because of his health issue, he ejaculated immediately, but like couldn't sustain his erection. And so he received even more ridicule. And I hope she mocked the shit out of him. Not that erectile dysfunction is funny in any way, but Chikatilo is a horrible human. And I just want him to get mocked at every turn.
Okay. All right.
So when he came of age to go to college or university, he failed his entrance exam to Moscow State University. So he decided to be a telephone engineer. His younger sister moved in with him and actually set him up with a girl named Faina. And they actually ended up getting married and having two children.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
Yeah, I don't know anything more about his children. I'm assuming they probably don't want to be known.
No. And it's so sad and it's so odd how so many serial killers
Have
have
kids.
children and families and
Yeah. And they can
yeah.
totally disassociate that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, it's
insane. I
crazy.
feel so bad for all the kids too.
I know. Can you imagine?
No.
There's
You'd
actually a
have
whole
so many people.
podcast. There's a whole podcast called I want to say it's called The Happy Face Killer, and it's about the daughter of the serial killer that was the happy face killer, and she kind of goes through how she found out he was a serial killer and how her life is now and her relationship with him now and stuff like that. It's a pretty interesting podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having a relationship with somebody that did stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even
That'd
if
be
it's
hard.
like my mother or father, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That'd be so I can't imagine.
yeah.
Ugh. But anyway, so he decided after being a telephone engineer for a while that he wanted to go back and try for school again. And he did. And he went to school. And in 1971, Chikatilo decided to become a school teacher, which is great.
Ew.
And he became a great teacher that everyone looked up to, a pillar of the community. Podcast over. Goodbye. Just kidding. He started molesting his students. So before I found this thing that it was a quote. This quote says, before long, student administrators were notified that he was sexually assaulting his young students. Apparently, he was fondling the breasts of a student and then he ejaculated on her and then did
Ew.
the same thing to another student. Yeah. There were rumors that he masturbated in front of students, and even parents were starting to complain about him. So instead of putting him in jail where he clearly belongs, the director of the school said, so either leave or you're going to be fired. So Chikatilo was like, all right, I'll just leave and go to a different school. And that's exactly what he did.
And they don't do background checks.
I mean, this was back in the 70s in USSR. I doubt it.
That's scary.
Yeah. And so he traveled to a couple different schools and he did this a few times. Sorry, I lost my spot. He did this a few times until 1978 when he upped the ante and committed his first murder. He found 9-year-old Yelena Zaktanova, who he intended to rape, but he ejaculated too quickly while he was slashing her with a knife because I guess it was
Oh
too exciting for him.
my gosh.
He murdered her. And I saw one source that said he dumped her body into a river and another that said he left her body in the frozen woods. So I'm not sure which one it is. But either way, there was a witness that saw Chikatilo with Yelena. And one source said police even found blood by his house, her blood. But his wife gave him an airtight alibi saying that she was with him all night long. So they didn't really look into him that hard. And down the street was another man named Alexander Kravchenko, who was previously convicted of rape. So they looked into him. And even though he also had an alibi that was corroborated by a few people, after hours of interrogation and probably some brutal interrogation, again, it's the USSR, he confessed. We now know this was a false confession. He was convicted and executed in 1984
Oh no.
for a murder he did not commit. Although
Oh no.
he was a convicted rapist, but still.
Oh man.
Yeah. So in 1981, Chikatilo was working at a mining school and he got a new job as a clerk for raw materials factory where he got to travel, which means, you guessed it, a huge pool of victims that aren't easily traced back to him. And he stopped working at the mining school because I think they got rid of his position. So then he found this new job. 3 years go by from the murder of Elena before he would take another victim. Then on September 3rd, 1981, 17-year-old Larissa Kachinko was brutally murdered by Chikatilo. Okay, it's going to get a little graphic here. So she was stabbed. Sorry, go ahead.
That's a huge age gap.
Yeah, so he goes all over, boys, girls, young women,
Oh, so not even like an MO at all.
just the way he kills them.
Okay.
Yeah. So he stabbed and strangled her. And to keep her from crying out, he gagged her with dirt and leaves. The brutality of the killing allowed him to get his sexual release, and he really liked it. And thus begins his spree.
I really don't enjoy like everything is horrible, but the whole stuffing dirt
Yes.
and leaves,
Yeah.
because that basically just suffocates you. It makes you scared, like even more
Mm-hmm.
scared than what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just horrifying.
Yeah. It gets worse.
Oh,
Yeah. So he would find runaways. He would take them into the forest, attack them, attempt to rape them, and then use his knife to mutilate them. On June 12th, 1982, Chikatilo took his next victim, 13-year-old Lauba Baruch. He followed her from a bus stop and tried to rape her. In all of these, he tries to rape them, but he fails. So he stabbed her 22 times.
that doesn't seem normal.
No,
Did he know her?
no, and that's not unusual for him to stab someone that many times.
It's so personal.
I know, I know. He focused a lot on stabbing the eyes because he believed an old Russian legend that your image is imprinted after death in their eyes. So, like, the last thing they see is imprinted in their eyes. So, for his first couple of victims, he would stab their eyes or gouge their eyes out. Also, this victim that we're talking about right here was when it comes down to his court case, this one went back and forth on if he did it or not. He finally admits to doing it. That's why I put it here. But at first, he doesn't admit to this one. But over the next 6 months, Chikatilo continued to kill. And by the end of 1983, he had 17 victims.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm. But at this time, only 6 had been found. One of his victims, Olga Stelmanchenok, was stabbed 50 times,
Whoa.
disemboweled,
That's
and her chest was ripped open.
oh no.
Yeah. So at the time, Russia didn't want to believe that their culture could create a serial killer. They thought it was a unique Western problem. So they didn't want to put that label on these 6 murders, and they didn't want the media to talk about it. And they controlled the media. I mean, they still do. So they would withhold a lot of information from the public. But in doing so, a lot of rumors started to fly because people were hearing about these murders. Some feared there was a foreign entity killing their people, like maybe some kind of foreign attack on them. Other people thought it was werewolves. I don't have more information on that, but it does speak to the brutality of the killings. But by 1983, Detective Major Mikhail Jestov took over the investigation and immediately saw the similarities of the case and believed it to be a serial killer. So much so that he sent a letter back to the government in Moscow criticizing the police work of the local police forces, basically saying, like, this is clearly a serial killer and, like, they're being stupid.
Good.
But yeah, but progress in the investigation was slow moving, and police interrogation methods would often get false confessions from prisoners. So he was not super confident in the local police investigation so far. They did have 2 pieces of evidence at this point. They believed that based on semen found at the crime scenes, the murderer had blood type AB. They also found gray hair at several of the murder sites. Now, again, this is 1970s, 1980s. So, like, evidence gathering and stuff like that isn't the best yet.
It still isn't even top notch.
Yeah. In 1984, Chikatilo was even interviewed by the police for these murders, but was released because his blood type did not match. He was type A.
Why is it always like that?
Yeah. During this time, Chikatilo's murders became more and more vicious, and he started to eat parts of his victims.
Oh,
He would eat their sex organs. And I
Why?
don't know if that means, actually, I do know that means like uterus and testicles because he talks about it
Why?
later on. I don't.
Why?
He would remove the tips of their noses or their whole nose and tongues. Yeah. Police presence increased and they placed hidden cameras at train stations, which is where they thought he was getting his victims because most of the murders were happening like in the vicinity of train stations. They also had undercover police women dress up as runaways and undercover policemen dress up as rail workers and mushroom pickers, which apparently was a very popular Russian pastime during this time.
Oh, I don't like mushrooms.
I do.
I mean, it's a lie. I didn't I didn't used to like them. And then I started liking them again.
Yeah.
Well, not again, but like I started liking them in my adulthood.
Isn't it
And
funny how your
then
tastes change like that?
I think they change like every 7 years or so,
Oh.
like your taste buds,
Hmm.
because your cells regenerate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I probably like way off on my numbers there, but
Yeah. Sounds
but
good.
I started really enjoying like portobello mushrooms,
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
on the barbecue and everything.
Yeah,
But
those
then
are
I had
good.
a portobello mushroom burger,
Mm-hmm.
and the next day I was dying. So
Oh,
I
no. So
have
it
like
kind of
a
ruined it now.
well, I have like an intolerance, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
Because anytime I have like even a little bit of mushroom, I'm just like hurting.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it kind of sucked.
Yeah, you started to like them and can't have them.
Yeah. It was very sad. Because I
Yeah.
didn't mind like cream of mushroom soup or,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
whatever. Side little note.
Little side mushroom note.
Little mushroom pickers.
Mushroom pickers. So this extra surveillance didn't catch the Rostov Ripper, as he was known, but it did result in the arrest of more than 200 rapists and dozens of murderers. So that's good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Good
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah. By November of 1985, the investigation included 15 procurators, which is a basically a prosecutor, but a different word for it for another country. And
Okay.
and 29 detectives.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They also enlisted the help of Dr. Alexander man, these names. Bukhanovsky, Bukhanovsky, Bukhanovsky. Ivan's going to be laughing so hard at me right now. Bukhanovsky.
A lot of the V's you're supposed to pronounce as F.
Bukhanovsky. Bukhanovsky. Anyway, he was a psychiatrist. And this was the first time Russia had used the help of a psychiatrist during a serial killer investigation. His profile said that, and I'm kind of quoting from here, the killer was a reclusive man between 45 and 50 years old who had endured a painful and isolated childhood and who was incapable of flirting or courtship with women. This individual was well educated, likely to be married and have fathered children, but also a sadist who suffered from impotence and could achieve sexual arousal and release only by seeing his victims suffer. The murders themselves were an analog to the sexual intercourse this individual was incapable of performing, and his knife became a substitute for his penis, which failed to function normally. Because many of the killings had occurred on weekdays near mass transport hubs and across the entire Rostov Oblast, Bukhanovsky, I'm gonna call him Alexander. Alexander also argued that the killer's work required him to travel regularly, and based upon the actual days of the week when the killings had occurred, the killer was most likely tied to a production schedule, which is spot on.
That's crazy how
Yeah,
accurate that guy was.
yeah,
Holy
spot
shit.
on. So during this time, Chikatilo was closely following this investigation and decided to lay low for a little bit because things were kind of ramping up in it. And about a year, he waited before he could no longer. On August 18th, 1986, police found the body of 18-year-old Irina Porgalova. Her body had been, okay, this is bad, so trigger warning. Her body had been cut open from her neck to her genitalia. She had one breast removed and her eyes were cut out.
He is just really rampant.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Chikatilo's killings were back in full force, and in 1987, he killed several little boys outside of the city where the manhunt had been conducted. In 1988, Chikatilo took a woman and tied her hands behind her back. He stuffed her mouth with dirt and then severed her nose from her face. He then stabbed her several times in the neck before bludgeoning her to death with a slab of concrete.
Oh.
Since he used a different method to kill her, investigators were unsure if this was the same killer. But in May of 1988, a 9-year-old boy's body was found, and they knew that this was the work of their ripper. Then, in February of 1989, he killed 16-year-old Tatiana Rusova in his daughter's vacant apartment. He dismembered her, so police also didn't link her to the Ripper murders. But they did find 4 other victims, which caused them to start filming and photographing passengers on trains again, because most of the bodies were found close to the train tracks.
So terrible. Yeah. Like, holy crap, this man.
Chikatilo continued to murder until November 6, 1990, when he lured his last victim, 22-year-old Svetlana Korostik, out of the train station and into the nearby woods. When he came back to the station, an undercover officer, Igor Rybakov, saw Chikatilo go to the nearby well and wash his hands and face. He also noticed that his coat had grass and soil stains on the elbows, and he had a small red stain on his cheek that looked like blood. He had a pretty serious cut on one of his fingers, and he looked extra suspicious because people only came from the woods in that area because they were going mushroom hunting, and he did not look like a mushroom hunter. Like, he was dressed way nicer than you would going mushroom hunting. So Igor stopped Chikatilo, asked for his papers, but didn't really have a reason to arrest him, so he just went back to his office and wrote up a report. A week or so later, police found the body of Svetlana, and when they looked into the officer report who had run surveillance on the area, lo and behold, Chikatilo's name came up. Officers also recognized his name because he had been questioned back in 1984 and was added to the suspect list in 1987. As they started to look into him, they found out about his past sexual assaults as a teacher. So on November 14th, they put him under surveillance. During this time, they saw him approach several young women or children, having conversations with them. If they broke off the convo, he would wait and then start to talk to someone else. On November 20th, 1990, Chikatilo approached several young boys before actually being arrested by 3 police officers. Once they brought him in, they found he had a briefcase with a knife, a rope, and a jar of Vaseline. They then searched his apartment and found 23 knives, a hammer, and a pair of shoes that matched a footprint that they had found by one of the victims' bodies years ago. But what about the blood types not matching? Well, when he was tested by blood, and he was type A. But when they tested the semen was type AB. Chikatilo is what is called a non-secretor, which means his saliva and other secretions do not contain blood group antigens. So they're not going to show that group. And so that's why the blood types were different.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. At the time, police had only linked him to 38 murders. I say only, but And Chikatilo was not confessing to anything except for molesting several of his students while he was a teacher. That is until November 29th, when Dr. Alexander joined the questioning and read him excerpts from his psychological profile. After about 2 hours, Chikatilo burst into tears and confessed. But he only confessed to 36 of the 38, not claiming the one girl we had talked about in the very beginning and another girl named Irina Porgolovoya. He also confessed that he often tasted the blood of his victims, and he said it gave him chills and he shook all over. And again, trigger warning for this next part. He said he would tear at his victims' genitals, lips, and nipples and tongues with his teeth. He would sometimes cut or bite off the victim's tongue and then run around the body as he held the tongue in the air.
Ew. Why?
At one point, he said that he chewed the uterus and testicles, but then later said he didn't actually do that, but he did swallow some of the victims' nipples and tongues. So then after that, he decided that he would say that he murdered the first girl that we had talked about. And this was his quote. He said, "I noticed that a girl of 12 or 13 was coming behind me, carrying some kind of bag in her hand. I slowed down and let her catch up to me. We walked together beside the woods. I started talking to her about whatever I thought might interest her. I remember she said she was going from home to the store. I pushed her off the road, grabbed her by the waist, and dragged her into the woods. I pushed her onto the ground, tore off her clothing, and lay on her. At the same time, I was stabbing her, imitating sex. From that, I ejaculated. I threw her clothes and bag away somewhere, but I don't remember where."
It's disgusting.
This is a 13-year-old girl.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. On November 30th, he was officially charged with 36 murders, but over the next few days, he confessed to 20 more. So on April 14th, 1992, his trial began, officially being charged with 53 counts of murder.
Holy shit.
And 5 counts of sexual assault against minors.
Wow.
During trial, Chikatilo was kept in an iron cage in the corner of the courtroom to protect him from the victim's relatives. During the trial, he would sing and kind of like not really pay attention. And at one point, he even pulled his own pants down. I think he was trying to get the insane verdict. But I mean, to do all this, you got to be a little insane, right?
Yeah.
Well, Chikatilo was found guilty, and on October 15th, he was sentenced to death plus 86 years. When he heard his sentence, he kicked his bench across the cage and began shouting. The judge said, "Taking into consideration the horrible misdeeds of which he is guilty, this court has no alternative but to impose the only sentence that he deserves. I therefore sentence him to death." He did appeal, but it was rejected. And on February 14th, 1994, Chikatilo was killed by a single gunshot to the gunshot behind the right ear, and he was buried in an unmarked grave in the prison cemetery.
Wow.
His last words were, "Don't blow my brains out. The Japanese want to buy them."
Oh my goodness.
And a quote that he said, "When I used my knife, it brought psychological relief. I know I have to be destroyed. I was a mistake of nature." Andrei Chikatilo. And that, my friends, is the horrific story of Andrei Chikatilo. Thanks, Ivan.
That was awful. I hated it. Thank you. Oh, jeepers. Didn't enjoy that.
No, that one was bad.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
I feel like I have a better story.
Okay, good.
I think I do. So let's just see what we can do. Are we ready?
I am ready.
Okay. My computer keeps having a stroke, so we'll see how long this lasts.
Okay.
Just my monitor keeps blacking out. I don't know why.
Oh.
Just started.
Great.
So I am going to be talking about Guy Fawkes, the Gunpowder Plot, all that good shit. Okay.
Okay.
So my sources were Britannica and All That's Interesting.
Nice.
Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Because of the use of Guy Fawkes' likeness in the film V for Vendetta, as I mentioned earlier, and the subsequent adoption of the mask by the hacktivist group, I'm not going to say their names. I don't want to get in trouble. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Anonymous?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not going to hack us. We're not doing anything bad.
Well, you never know. The face of Guy Fawkes has gained cultural significance in recent years. However, because of his involvement in the failed gunpowder plot of 1605, some view Guy Fawkes as a terrorist, while others consider him as a freedom fighter akin to the character V in the well-known movie and graphic novel.
Oh, I didn't know it was a graphic novel. That makes sense, though.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Early in the 17th century, Fox belonged to a small group of English Roman Catholics who had enough of the Protestant takeover of their country. Therefore, this group of conspirators came up with a scheme to blow up Parliament.
Oh my God.
And in doing so, killing King James I in order to bring Catholic control back to the nation.
So I am extremely fascinated with the Catholic Protestant War, but it is the stupidest war. I mean, you guys believe in the same God. It's so stupid.
Yeah. It gets.
And so many people died. So many people died.
Yep. But I mean, what else did they have to do back then? Nothing.
Nothing.
But on November 5th, 1605, just after midnight, Guy Fawkes was found in the Parliament cellar, which subsequently foiled their scheme. He and his accomplices were prosecuted for treason soon after, and then they were put to death. And I don't want to laugh at somebody dying.
Yeah, that's not good.
But his death is funny.
Oh, okay.
Stupid. And I'll get to it later.
Oh, okay.
Guy Fawkes Day, also known as Guy Fawkes Night or Bonfire Night, is observed on November 5th in the United Kingdom. It is a celebration of the unsuccessful assassination attempt that includes bonfires, fireworks, and the burning of Guy Fawkes effigies.
Listen, anytime I have an excuse to have a fire and fireworks, I'm down.
Really, honestly. And it's really ironic too, because people were literally put to death for trying to start a fire, essentially.
Yeah.
And now people are doing it to celebrate his day.
Yeah, that is a little ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's probably like, what the hell are you people doing? I got killed for this.
Literally. But he also did try to assassinate the king.
Yeah, you can't do that.
No. So, even though he's like the face of this plot and he's the most well-known, he was actually one of 13 individuals who planned the gunpowder plot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And now, did they all kidnap Natalie Portman or just him?
I think just him.
Okay. And it was Natalie Portman, right?
I think so. I don't know. I watched it once in high school.
Mm.
So that was like 15
years ago.
15 years ago.
30 years ago.
I'm only 30. I'm only 30
years ago.
That's you.
Jessica's barely alive.
Barely alive in high school. So, throughout a large part of its history, England was closely associated with the Catholic Church. Ashley's just going to love this. Nevertheless, the Pope rejected King Henry VIII's request to dissolve his union with Catherine of Aragon in 1534. So, King Henry VIII just cracks me the fuck up. He's so funny.
He's a horrible man.
I know, but he's just like, you're not doing my bidding. Okay, I'm just gonna become the head of the fucking church.
Bye, bitch.
So he became the head of the Church of England.
Yeah. And I think if you guys want to know more about Henry VIII, I think I did an episode on him way back.
You did. Like, it's one of our earlier episodes.
I'd say like one of the first 10 episodes, I feel.
Yeah. So it was actually a really cool episode. It involved some ghosts, talked about his wives, their beheadings. Yeah. He's not a dope guy, but like it's just funny to me that he's like, you're not doing as I want. I'm just gonna fucking do it myself.
Bad bitch. Which I guess in his head that would make sense because the king is supposed to be like doing God's will. Like he's supposed to be one step below God or something like that, I think.
Well, exactly. And everybody's supposed to be listening to him, right?
Right.
So
yeah. So it makes sense for King Henry to think that.
Yeah.
Plus, I think we've talked about it, but I think Anne Boleyn helped kind of push that along, which go her, man. For a woman in that day, she did really well for herself.
Yeah. From then on, Protestantism replaced Catholicism in England. Then, more than 50 years later, King James VI of Scotland, who was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, started to gain authority. Despite Queen Elizabeth I having James's mother beheaded, she named James heir to the throne before she died. And in 1603, James became King of England, thus becoming James I, which is so weird to me.
Why?
Well, he started off as James VI.
Oh.
So now
but he was the first James King.
No, I know. I get that part, but it's just then his heir is going to be the James II, but really they're James VII.
But that doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is kings.
Silly. It's just silly.
No, I get that.
Whatever. His past, though, was a little sketch.
Ooh.
So it's going to come back to haunt him. Okay. 1603, this man becomes king.
Okay.
And the Gunpowder Plot was 2 years later.
Oh.
He's not doing well.
Yeah. People don't like him.
No. So prior to becoming king, he wrote a book on witchcraft and magic called Demonology in 1597.
Was he pro demonology?
It examined the supposed impact of demons on regular people and included a variety of other paranormal topics. James clearly feared the occult. He even went so far as to say that in 1589, immediately after he made the decision to wed Anne of Denmark, who was 14 years old at the time, a coven of witches had performed a spell to bring a storm that terrified the then 23-year-old monarch.
Wow.
Aside from being the king behind the King James Bible, he is most known for...
Oh.
You didn't get that?
No, I never put two and two together. Okay. Interesting.
He is most known for including sodomy among the horrible crimes which ye are bound in conscience never to forgive.
Oh.
Despite the fact that he had multiple male lovers throughout his lifetime.
So he just hated himself, basically.
Pretty much. He was just a massive hypocrite.
Yeah.
The King James Bible also originated from a 3-day meeting held at Hampton Court in Surrey, where James he rejected multiple proposals that were put out by both Protestants and Catholics over the way the nation should go. And so, of course, this infuriated both groups. What is the point in holding a meeting if you are going to reject ideas and thoughts from everybody? Like, why have them there? You know, makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Because he was bored. I don't know.
I don't know. This resentment culminated in the 1603 Plot, BYE plot, a failed attempt by Catholics and Puritans to depose and replace the monarch that laid the groundwork for the far more notorious Gunpowder Plot. So, if you're going to fail, might as well just keep going at it. Even though his wife was a Catholic, King James I rapidly disregarded his early seeming sympathy for English Catholics when he said in a speech to Parliament in 1604 that he detested the Catholic faith.
Oh, that's not going to win you any friends.
No. For English Catholics, this was especially concerning because of because of the severe religious persecution they endured throughout Queen Elizabeth I's reign. Specifically, a devoted Catholic called Robert Catesby, whose father had faced persecution for defying the Church of England during Elizabeth's reign, took offense at James's statement.
Yeah, I bet.
Catesby or Catsby, I don't know. It's all weird. And I couldn't find pronunciations on these people, so 1600s, give me a break. Catesby started meeting in secret with other Catholics to plot the assassination of James I in hopes of ending the persecution of Catholics. The conspirators wanted to reinstate Catholic control in the nation and appoint Princess Elizabeth, James's daughter, as a puppet ruler after he was killed. Catesby had planned the conspiracy as early as May 1603 when he told Percy in response to the latter's statement of his intention to assassinate the king and that he was thinking of a most sure way. Catesby then dispatched a message to his cousin, Robert Winter, in Huntingdon, near Worcester, to travel to London on or about November 1st, 1603, but Winter refused. He obeyed when a second urgent call arrived shortly after, and Catesby initiated him and John Wright into the plot to blow up Parliament at a residence in Lambeth, most likely in January of 1604.
It's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Let's go.
Yeah, like... However, before implementing this strategy, it was determined to try a quiet way to secure the repeal of the penal regulations, which were a set of regulations that effectively criminalized Roman Catholicism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Winter was dispatched to Flanders to recruit the assistance of Juan de Velasco, Duke of Frias, and Constable of Castile, who was negotiating a peace treaty between England and Spain. Winter returned to England around the end of April, having obtained nothing but empty promises from the constable, bringing with him Guy Fawkes, a man loyal to the Roman Catholic cause and recommended for risky excursions. On May 20th, 1604, the 13 individuals who made up the conspirators took an oath of secrecy and began devising the Gunpowder Plot. The group's first scheme involved digging a tunnel beneath the Houses of Parliament, packing it full of explosives, and setting it off. But
not a bad idea, but
not a terrible idea. But in 1605, they were able to lease a cellar directly underneath the House of Lords, which made for a much more advantageous and practical explosion site. But, like, why would you be able to rent a cellar? Like, why would you be able to rent a room?
Yeah, that is weird.
Right?
Yeah.
Like a tunnel underneath the House of the Lords.
Just rent that out, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird.
How would you not have that link back to you? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless they rented it under a false name, and back then I'm sure they didn't have like great records.
That's true. And considering what comes next, that makes sense. The new scheme called for Fox to enter into the cellar, which now held gunpowder barrels, on November 5th, 1605, the day of the opening of Parliament. But on October 26th, a few days prior, Lord Monteagle, one of the conspirators' brother-in-law, received an anonymous letter. It was a forewarning to Monteagle to stay away from the Parliament opening. It said, "My lord, out of the love I bear to some of your friends, I have a care of your preservation. Therefore, I would advise you, as you tender your life, to devise some excuse to shift your attendance at this Parliament, for God and man have concurred to punish the wickedness of this time. And think not slightly of this advertisement, but retire yourself into your country, where you may expect the event in safety. For though there be no appearance of any stir, yet I say they shall receive a terrible blow this Parliament, and yet they shall not see who hurts them. This council is not to be condemned, because it may do you good and can do you no harm, for the danger is past as soon as you have burnt the letter, and I hope God will give you the grace to make good use of it, to whose holy protection I commend you."
Oh my gosh. He just like gave away the whole friggin' plot.
Yeah. So, never trust anybody.
No.
Moral of the story.
Well, you know, I mean, I think the guy who tells someone is in the right here, but
Oh, 100%. But just, I think he was just doing it to protect his brother-in-law, right? Like,
yeah.
But the letter was then given to James the First, senior minister, Robert Cecil, by Monteagle. The conspirators were informed that Monteagle had gotten the letter in the interim, and they decided to go ahead with the plan nevertheless.
Oh my gosh, that's stupid.
Yeah. Cecil showed the letter to King James I on his return from a hunting expedition in Cambridgeshire on November 1st. A few days later, on November 4th, James's troops searched the Parliament vaults thoroughly and discovered Guy Fawkes and a store of fuel. Fawkes introduced himself to the troops as John Johnson. That's original.
John Johnson. That's it.
Oh my God. And said that the firewood was owned by his boss, Thomas Percy, a well-known Catholic activist. This was insufficient to persuade them of his innocence, and early on November 5th, James ordered another search of the vaults. So I guess they had let John Johnson go. But they were like, that seems a little fishy. You don't think? You don't think?
My name's Bill Billerson.
Yeah. Once more, 36 barrels of gunpowder and Guy Fawkes were found. He had matches and fuses with him this time, and he was apprehended right away.
So he had it all on him. He's like, there we go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then the officials allegedly tortured him. Oh. And at some point, he admitted to being a member of an English Catholic plot to overthrow the Protestant hierarchy. He also disclosed the identities of his accomplices, all of whom made an immediate attempt to escape. So I guess he's just like the Judas of the group. Right? Can I say that? Yeah. During their failed escape attempts, Catesby, Percy, Jack Wright, and Kit Wright were all killed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. After being apprehended, the 8 conspirators who remained were brought to the Tower of London to await trial. Francis Tresham, one of the conspirators, passed away from health problems prior to his trial. The remaining men were deemed guilty of treason on January 27th, 1606, and were given the punishment of being hanged, drawn, and quartered.
Oh, that's a bad one.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, this
at least they're hanged first. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, still not great.
No, but
this long and excruciating process comprised of hanging the prisoner, like Ashley said, but not until they were dead, just until they were on the verge of death.
Oh. Okay, well, then I take back my comment.
Okay.
I was like, well, at least they were dead first, basically, but no, okay.
No, until they were on the verge of death.
How scary.
Yeah. And then they were cut down, their intestines were removed, and their genitals were severed. And then after that, they were decapitated. So
people were sick.
Awful. On January 30th, so 3 days later, conspirators Sir Everard Digby, Robert Wintour, John Grant, and Thomas Bates were put to death in St. Paul's churchyard. The other conspirators met the same end a day later in Westminster's Old Palace Yard. That's what Robert Keyes, Ambrose Rookwood, and Thomas Wintour all experienced. But Fawkes was able to escape that torturous punishment. It's not good.
Oh.
But it's
better?
I don't know. I kind of.
Okay.
Sadly, he managed to escape this horrible punishment by either falling or jumping from a ladder while he was scaling the gallows. So he broke his neck in the process.
Oh, yeah. I'd rather have my neck broken. Yeah.
But the only reason I was laughing earlier is I could just picture him just like I could picture myself just like slipping on a rung and just like falling to my like the most Jessica thing to ever do. Even though he didn't eat. Oh, wow. Even though he didn't meet his end as planned, he was still dismembered and his body parts were sent around the kingdom as a warning.
Oh.
Parliament then decided that November 5th will be observed as a day of remembrance. So stupid.
Remembering how you were almost assassinated? That's what you want to remember?
Yeah. Okay. But it was a remembrance of the thwarted plot. So it was because King James didn't get murdered.
That's not a thing.
I know. In the nation, festivities, particularly church services, were required, and every congregant was asked to express gratitude that the gunpowder plot had failed.
Say you're happy about it. Say
Yeah.
it. Say it.
Although the annual celebration has continued, the obligation to attend church on that day has been withdrawn.
Do they still have to say they're happy that it didn't happen?
I don't think so. People in the United Kingdom celebrate November 5th by setting off fireworks or bonfires.
Cute.
Guy Fawkes effigies are still burned by many, which is super ironic. Which is why Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Guy Fawkes Day, is still frequently observed on Bonfire Night. In the days preceding the state opening of Parliament, Parliament instituted a ceremonial search in the wake of the Gunpowder Plot. The guard are supposed to inspect the buildings and cellars to make sure that there's no explosives and there's no other security risks. But I feel like that's just like,
good
common
business.
sense.
Yeah. So do you know, and maybe you're going to say this and I'm jumping ahead, or maybe you don't know, nowadays how they celebrate it? Is it happiness that it was thwarted, or are they celebrated it like celebrating him?
Honestly, I don't really know.
Okay.
Like, I feel like it's just, the fact that it's November 5th and it's Guy Fawkes Day.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to burn things, so they burn things. I don't know.
Well, I know we have a few listeners over in the UK, so let us know.
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, so he basically represents anarchy and rioting and revolt. And it's funny because he was one of 13 men.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he was the one.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So yeah, but that is my story.
Very interesting. I loved that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I always have it in my head. Remember the 5th of November.
Yeah.
And the funny story, I may or may not have told it on the podcast already.
Oh, tell me again.
But when I was in university, I lived in this, like, my university was this yellow house. It was a very tiny school. And on the 5th of November, we all started to smell smoke.
Oh no.
And we thought that it was like, we had an old dryer downstairs, so we thought that maybe like lint had been caught on fire or something. Our library was set on fire.
Oh geez.
And we don't know by who or how or anything like that.
The ghost.
Whether it was an accident or intentional. But it was just very interesting that it was on the 5th of November.
Yeah. I feel like that was probably purposeful.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Who knows? We'll never know.
It was the ghost of the guy. I can't think of his name right now.
It's literally Guy Fawkes.
Thank you. It was the ghost of Guy Fawkes. That's a really easy name. Why didn't I remember that?
I don't know.
It's literally 6 letters, the whole thing.
It's not, though.
Oh,
it's Fawkes.
What? Trying to get fancy.
Yeah. So.
Well, do you have any jokes for us?
No, I was really hoping you were going to find some.
I never find jokes.
You literally have time to search for jokes.
I'm busy getting beaten in my video game. I started playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I love it. It's so good.
I keep seeing TikToks about this vampire elf guy.
He's my lover.
He's so hot.
He's pretty sexy. He's kind of a dick.
That's fine. He's kind of hot. And his voice actor is like all over TikTok right now. And oh my gosh.
Is he hot?
Yes and no.
Okay.
His voice makes him very sexy.
Okay. He does have a
He
very sexy voice.
To me, he looks like a Walmart version of Skeet Ulrich.
Oh, okay.
You
Okay.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Look him
Mm-hmm.
up. But yeah, he looks like a Walmart version of Skeet Ulrich.
Okay. Well, yeah,
But
he's my lover, but I missed a scene. If anybody's playing Baldur's Gate 3 and you want to romance him, you have to have a scene happen. You have to go to the Moon Towers and you have to go to this lady and she has to ask to become a vampire and you have to let him say no. Otherwise, your whole romance is over. And I found that out afterwards. So now I have to go back and fix it
why can't she become a vampire?
because he doesn't want to. And that's the
Oh,
whole thing is giving him free will.
oh, ow.
So,
Okay. Well, I have some fire jokes.
okay.
Okay. What did the flame say to his buddies after he fell in love?
What?
I found the perfect match.
No.
What happens when wildfire tells you a joke?
You get burned.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you.
I get one like every 10th episode we do.
What is fire to a pyrotechnic?
I don't know what.
Just a warm up.
I like that one.
All right. How can flames afford to be so bright?
I don't know how.
Fire works.
On that note, if you want more of us lovely ladies, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and Patreon. We should plug our Patreon more in the beginning. But anyway, Patreon.
And if you want to rate and review us, you can do so on Spotify and Apple Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to bringing you 2 new stories next week.
Bye.
Bye.